Eyeshadows are very common to use. So you get the little eyeshadow palette, you figure out which ones you can use with your hair. You buy 30 of them at a time because they're not always easy to find. They're expensive. You have to try to figure out how to use a small brush, just to give you an idea of what we've all been through when I talk to customers, which I really like doing as much as possible. The struggle is real, as we say. It has improved, thankfully, but there still aren't very compelling solutions. When you consider that there are 50% of women who experience hair loss, you walk into any name your big box retailer, where's the section for hair loss concealers? There is none. And I still find that quite baffling given how huge a market there is for this.
Welcome to the Friends in Beauty podcast, a safe space for ambitious beauty industry creatives to have real talk, get real answers, and practical tools to grow their businesses. My name is Aquia Robinson, and I'm a makeup artist, beauty educator, and the creator of Friends in Beauty. I created Friends in Beauty to support like-minded creatives, just like you, on their quest to connect, network, and build genuine relationships within the beauty community. Join me every week as me and my special guests reveal the keys to success and longevity in the beauty industry, and most importantly, have fun while doing it. You ready? Hey, what's up? It's your best friend in beauty, Aquia Robinson. Welcome back to another episode of the Friends in Beauty podcast. I am so happy to have you here with me, and I hope you're listening to this episode in high spirits and in good health. If you are a friend in beauty, I welcome you to join the Friends in Beauty Facebook community. If you're looking for a community of like-minded, ambitious friends in beauty to virtually connect with, network, and share resources, then click the link down below in the show description to join our community. And I'll be there to welcome you with open arms. Also, follow Friends in Beauty on all social media platforms at Friends in Beauty. What I like to do is something called the Friends in Beauty Friday feature, where every Friday I spotlight a different friend in beauty and their accomplishments. So no matter how big or small you think it is, I want to shout you out. I want to send you some good vibes. So all you have to do is use the hashtag FIB Friday feature, tag Friends in Beauty on something that you have accomplished, and I'll share it with the community. Additionally, the Friends in Beauty podcast is available on several platforms. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google, YouTube, you name it. And whatever platform you are listening from right now, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into the Friends in Beauty podcast. I truly appreciate you so much. And I would love it even further if you took the time to leave a 5-star rating, a review, a comment, a like, a share, a subscribe, or something to let me know how you feel about the Friends in Beauty podcast. I would absolutely love it. And also, I have to tell you that you should join the Friends in Beauty mailing list tribe if you haven't already, because they are the first to know about all things Friends in Beauty, and I send out different business resources, tips, and advice throughout the week. So if that's something that you're interested in, the link for that will be in the description as well. And last but not least, the most important thing is to share the Friends in Beauty podcast with your other friends in beauty, your family, your friends, anybody that you think could benefit from the information that is being shared. Share away to help me grow the Friends in Beauty community. Now, on this episode of the Friends in Beauty podcast, I welcome the founder of Me Cosmetics, Camille Baretto, to the Friends in Beauty guest chair. Dermatologist tested, Me Cosmetics launched at the end of 2021 to rave reviews. After struggling with thinning hair for years, Camille was unable to find a confidence-boosting beauty product that effectively addressed her situation, which is a common beauty concern in over 50% of women. After deciding enough was enough, she decided to tackle the problem head-on, creating an innovative, problem-solving cosmetic solution, Can't Stop Me Now, Ultimate Coverage Scalp Foundation. Me Cosmetics is committed to addressing the priorities expressed by its customers around the formulation, sustainability, and ethical standards. Camille firmly believes in bettering the community, and Me Cosmetics directs 100% of net profits from their A Gentle Touch microfiber towel, as well as a portion of all other profits, to organizations dedicated to the fight against human trafficking. It was such a pleasure meeting Camille and having this conversation with her. In this interview, Camille shares her 25-year journey with hair loss and why she chose to develop Me Cosmetics, how Me Cosmetics is different from other hair loss products on the market, realistic advice for women experiencing hair loss at the moment, the future products on the horizon for Me Cosmetics that I feel are going to be game changers. And as someone with alopecia, she even shared her opinion on the slap heard all across the world at the Oscars and so much more. I truly learned so much talking to Camille, and I'm so excited for the advances that she's helping to make for women experiencing alopecia and hair loss, just helping them to regain their confidence. Let's go ahead and jump into this chat with Camille of Me Cosmetics, and if you prefer to watch our beautiful faces, then tune in on YouTube. Enjoy. Welcome to the Friends in Beauty Podcast, Camille.
Hi, how are you, Aquia?
I'm doing amazing. I was just telling you the weather is warming up here in DC. So anytime the sun is out, it just makes me so happy. So I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's here. It's overcast, but it's hot. It's Houston, so it's always hot.
Nice. I would love to start off with some icebreakers just to get us warmed up before we jump into like your brand and everything. And I always say so the Friends of Beauty audience can get to know you a little bit outside of what you do for your brand and what you do professionally.
Okay, perfect.
All righty. So first one, just give us 3 random facts about you.
Oh gosh. 3 random facts. Let's see. One, I suppose, is that I'm a really good Tetris player. I love Tetris. I'm addicted to Tetris. Another is I was in my college a cappella group. So I am a big fan of a cappella. Just the other day, I was playing some for some friends, and I found out that most people aren't such enthusiasts as I am, but it's such a great talent that I love groups who do that.
Love that.
And then the other, I'm thinking, gosh, I'm a PADI rescue diver. I no longer go scuba diving, but I used to spend all my holidays scuba diving 2-3 times a day out on a boat. So that is something that was a big part of my life before, and that I cherish all those memories. So it's great.
Wow, that's amazing. So in that job, are you like searching for something in particular?
It's actually just a training certification. So unless you choose to become an actual rescue diver, it's PADI, which is the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. They have a professional track, and then they have an amateur track. And on the amateur track, for people who are not professional divers, they have certain trainings so that you can learn the right skill set in case there's some sort of emergency.
It's really dope. I like that. You just never know when that can come in handy.
Exactly.
I love that. I have these things called pod decks. One is a would you rather, and one is a what the heck. You have crazy questions. So which one do you want?
Well, let's go with what the heck.
What the heck? Okay. Okay. What the heck?
I'm curious.
Seems like a random. Hopefully, it's not something I've chosen before. Okay, if you had to pick a new name for yourself, what would you pick?
Oh gosh, that's so funny because both my kids said they don't like the names we picked for them. I would probably pick the name Samantha. I've always loved that name because it's got really fun derivatives as a nickname, but it's also got a really nice, eloquent name that you can say in a couple different languages. So I like that name a lot.
Hey, Samantha. Come welcome Samantha to the show.
Hi there.
I love that. I know that you like to travel, so I don't want to ask you like, what's your favorite place? Like, what's your least favorite place that you travel to?
Oh, that's a funny question. What a great question. I would say a town in Peru. Now, my husband's Peruvian. We lived there for 5 years, and I love the country. But the one town I don't like very much there is called Arequipa. It's just a little bit provincial for my taste, and kind of it needs some development, I would say. But you know, it's got the people are great and the food is wonderful. So I suppose it's great blessings as well.
Okay. What do people always tell you that you're good at aside from what you do professionally?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably that I'm really resourceful. So I tend to be able to find solutions to things, whether it's figuring out Lego that has been set up incorrectly. You got to take it apart and fix it back up, whether it's figuring out a problem for work, whatever it may be, so in that sense, I think I'm pretty resourceful.
That's a good skill. I like that. When is the last time you did something for the first time?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Let me think. I suppose moving to Texas. I've never lived in Texas before. I've moved around a lot. Like you said, I've traveled and we've moved into a lot of places, but I have never lived in the great state of Texas. And we moved here 2 years ago.
Nice. How's it going?
It's a fantastic state. Look, every place has its pluses and minuses. I'm not going to complain about the weather. I'm Canadian, and so the weather here is fantastic. And the people are very friendly. Houston is full of people, very cordial.
Nice. Okay.
Mhm.
And if you weren't the CEO of Me Cosmetics, what else could you see yourself doing?
It's a funny thing to ask now. I think if you'd asked me that question 5 years ago, I'd give you a very different answer. But now I think I would figure out another business venture to start, because I worked in corporate America most of my career. And 5 years ago, before it ever occurred to me to launch this type of company, I would have said, oh, if I had retired from finance back then. I said, I would probably go back into finance and work in compliance, which isn't the sexiest area, but I actually really love it in that area. So that's probably what I would have said before. But now, no. Exactly.
I love that. Thanks for sharing with us. I would love to know, like, what were you doing before you launched Me Cosmetics, and like what led you to, developing the brand?
Oh, thank you for asking that. It's been a long journey. So I'm 46, so I've got a few years under my belt, and a couple of different stages in my life, I would say. Back in the day, I worked in tech out of college, both at a large company as well as a startup. So that was really interesting. And then I moved into finance, where I started in investment banking on the corporate finance side for M&A advisory and capital markets work, and then switched over to private banking, which is wealth management for high net worth individuals. So that was really great. And then when we moved around a lot, one of us, between my spouse and I, had to make some decisions as to if we could both continue in our careers, because it was difficult to continue to move for me. So I ended up taking a pause and retiring for a number of years, 7 years, to help my children get accustomed to different places that we moved to, and learn languages and figure out new cultures. So it's been quite a journey, I have to say. But you ask, how did I get here? And that's interesting, because while it's not so noticeable now because I take a lot of medication, I have had androgenetic alopecia since my early 20s. And so my journey with that is really what led me to start Me Cosmetics, because I just wanted to do something for others that I'd figured out for myself, and hopefully, make some money as we do it.
Okay. So you said androgenetic alopecia?
Yeah. So, obviously, unfortunately for what happened at the Oscars, there's been a lot of attention given to the word alopecia, which is actually in itself not a diagnosis. And I'm not medically trained, but, after almost 25 years, you tend to figure out your way around things.
Yeah.
So alopecia is the name of a symptom, which is a symptom of hair loss of hair. And there are lots of different types of alopecia, which have completely different reasons for existing. Okay. And so androgenetic alopecia, sometimes referred to as androgenic alopecia or female pattern hair loss, is just a bum draw in the genetic lottery pool, which is what you see that happens to many men, also happens to a number of women. It's just that women don't tend to talk about it too much, especially back in the day. Nobody talked about it. Yeah. I'm glad it's surfacing now, but it's basically diffuse general thinning across the entire crown of the hair. Right. In women.
I was going to ask you too, why do you think that is not as spoken about as it is with men? When men lose their hair, you see the Rogaine commercials, you see all of these different things that they market for men with hair loss. Why do you think that they don't do the same for like women?
I've always wondered, you bring up such a great question, because I've wondered that myself for years, right? And back in the day, so almost 25 years ago, the medical community didn't even really talk about it. To be quite honest, nobody knew who to send me to get diagnosed. And so since then, I've always been thinking, why do I feel like I'm all alone, right? And I think women tend to suffer alone. And I think there's also, and again, I'm not a sociologist here, but I think there's a lot more weight and importance that put on women, either self-imposed or societal, of the importance of, or the perceived importance of hair in beauty. And so I think that it probably goes to the core of how a woman feels about herself. Whereas men, it's like, shave it, own it, and it's kind of been like that for ages, or, here are the commercials, it's fine, we can help you solve that problem. But I think in women, it's just something that we've always suffered alone. And so because we didn't feel like we had a voice, or we didn't express our voice, or we didn't feel comfortable sharing our voice, that we were in a situation where it just wasn't talked about. So that was the biggest thing I would ever say, is that women always chose to suffer alone. And I love the fact, unfortunately, that there are many women with alopecia, but I love the fact that we are so many now actually talking about the issue and surfacing the issue. And this started well before me. I'm not taking credit for this, but whatsoever. But it's something that I think has really surfaced in the last couple of years, which I'm so excited about.
Yeah, and I'm randomly just thinking about someone that I know with alopecia. And it was years ago when I first started doing makeup, maybe like 2013, 14. She had this women's group with like a support group for other women with alopecia, but theirs is more so like, I guess, the more common form of alopecia that we see, where they don't have any hair. So they didn't have brows, and they were like water and everything. So I went and I like did their makeup and everything just to like, help them feel pretty and stuff like that. But I'm just randomly thinking about that. And I think that's like the most common form of alopecia that most people are used to. They're not used to just like the thinning hair.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for doing that, because I think, any joy you can bring to somebody when they're struggling is just life-changing. So thank you for doing that on behalf of women everywhere. And yeah, there's some tattoo artists doing beautiful tattoo work with women and men who have more progressed or advanced types of hair loss. The type you described, I think it's called universalis or totalis, depending on if it affects the entire body or just the head. And I believe it's a progression of an autoimmune disorder that often starts as areata, which is more of like the small bald patches. But it's great to see that, people are trying to attack it from different ways and just really boost women's confidence, no matter, what we can do, finding creative ways to do it. So that's awesome that you're doing that. Thank you.
When you were diagnosed like all of those years ago, like how did it affect how you navigated like your personal life or like your professional setting at the time?
It's interesting to go back to those days. I wish I could tell that young woman, it'll be okay, because at the time, I'll be very blunt and not to be Debbie Downer here, but it was extremely, extremely distressing. I would say, I would spend so many hours of the day thinking about it. It just consumed my thoughts, because you can see when people stare at your scalp, when you can see the scalp right through. Mine was pretty advanced. I ended up using toppers, which are basically clip in sort of, I would say like a toupee, but longer hair and much prettier. They've made some great advancements back then. So since back then, but it was really distressing. I fell into a deep depression and I had tremendous anxiety. Whether it was to be in a meeting, I didn't want to date people. There were so many ways it affected me. As when my husband knew me, we met in my mid-20s. So he's known me through much of this journey, especially the 2 postpartum parts of it, which just added insult to injury. Because you have to stop the medications, then you have the postpartum hair loss. Anyways, the whole thing continues. And, he's seen me crumpled on the bathroom floor in tears, just in tears. And so I think that really speaks to how much it can affect women, both on the negative when they're experiencing it, but on the positive with all the exciting either new medical treatments, which exist out there for a number of the different conditions, but also, and more importantly, I think more as it relates to us, the cosmetic ways that we can really help elevate women and really make them themselves feel better about themselves. And it doesn't necessarily mean hiding it, right? For some women, it is owning it and feeling like they have a really supportive community of people who are going to be nothing but loving and impressed and empathetic. I think that society's really made some big changes that way. So I've been really happy to see that change, because honestly, it was not like that 20 years ago. 20 years ago, even medical doctors, and I have great respect for them, especially those who are always training themselves and learning new techniques and new medical protocols. But even back then, I had a doctor who told me, well, at least you're not really sick. I've got folks over here with, pick your disease. I don't want to name a disease and call it worse or better, but, with more physical ailments that potentially could end their life, right? Their life their time on earth. So, it was hard back then. There wasn't much empathy. And so it's one of those things that now it's really exciting to see all the changes, because, like I said, poor Miss Jada Pinkett Smith, but, I think she's done, unfortunately at her cost, but she's done a tremendous service, really bringing these types of issues to light and showing one way of handling it, which is not trying to conceal it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Were you offended by that as someone who has alopecia? Were you offended by what happened at the Oscars?
It's interesting you ask, because I know there are a lot of PR agencies who started pitching things right after that. And, with our team, we said, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. No. Did I find it offensive? I found it very distasteful. But I also grew up, I think, in a time when there was a little bit more I wouldn't say tolerance, acceptance, better or for worse, whether you should or you shouldn't, make jokes at people's expense. So I remember jokes back in the Oscar days from many years ago where, they were saying terrible things about each other. So it didn't shock me at first, other than I can't believe he chose to say this right here now. But coming to think of it after a while, I said, with everything that society has advanced over the last 20 years, what was okay, I think 20 years ago, probably wasn't such a great idea. So I found it in poor taste and unfortunate, but like to look on the bright side, which is it has helped elevate, awareness tremendously. And I don't know her at all, but she clearly handled it like a champ, in my opinion. Talk about grace and elegance. That's what I will say.
She's very poised and she handled it.
Yes.
Like a lady. Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to know. So when did you make the decision that you wanted to step into the game of, helping to boost women's confidence and develop your brand? Like, what was that decision?
It's kind of a funny story. So those of us who have chosen to try to conceal our hair loss have had, a couple of different options available. Back in the day, almost nothing, frankly, either medical or cosmetic. But, in the last 10, 15 years, we've had some great advancements. The hair fibers have gotten better. The sprays are still the same. We still had the same, cheesy infomercials from back in the 80s with this spray. I can't remember what it was called, but it was this black spray that people would put on, and it was literally 15-minute infomercials on TV. And we're still at the same point with those. So I'm like, okay, maybe the ingredients are better, but still kind of the same application technology. Eyeshadows are very common to use. You get the little eyeshadow palette. You figure out which ones you can use with your hair. You buy 30 of them at a time because they're not always easy to find. They're expensive. You have to try to figure out how to use a small brush, just to give you an idea of what we've all been through. When I talk to customers, which I really like doing as much as possible, the struggle is real, as we say. It has improved, thankfully, but there still aren't very compelling solutions. When you consider that there are 50% of women who experience hair loss, mm-hmm. You walk into any name your big box retailer, where's the section for hair loss concealers? There is none. And I still find that quite baffling given how huge a market there is for this. Right. Because people will say it's really niche. And I say, I actually don't think so. If I may be so bold as to disagree, no, I don't think it's so niche, to be quite honest. People just don't talk about it like we talked about earlier. Right. So I had been trying to figure out ways to do it myself, and I kind of jerry-rigged things, and I had my system and it was clunky, but it got the job done. Mm-hmm. And then, one day I said, what we really need this to look like this, be like this, shape like this, the brush like this. And my husband goes, well, then just do it. And I do not come from an entrepreneurial family. We are a family of engineers and, good corporate, soldiers, and that's that. So it hadn't even dawned on me. And I said, but honey, I don't know anything about the beauty space. I don't know anything about launching a company. Yes, I know finance. Yes, I know business. Yes, I know, many things that I've learned along the way, but this is completely new. And he looks at me and he goes, I never thought you to be quite so, I wouldn't call it lazy. He goes, that's pretty selfish of you. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, you think that you've got a better way to do this. You've lived this. I've seen you suffer this yourself, and you're not willing to try doing something new to figure it out. And I look, and he knew how to put the bait right in front of me. It's like, he was just goading me. And I said, you know what? You're right. Absolutely. I'm going to figure this out. And so then it just became my mission to get this done. In terms of figuring out how the industry works. I'm no expert by any means, but I've certainly learned a lot about it. And that's how the whole journey started. And, you've got to tap into your resources and your network. For me, it started with my dermatologist back in Mexico City. We were on assignment there for 5 years. And she does some formulation work herself. She put me in touch with her chemists. And that's where we got started. Obviously things have changed tremendously since then, since we've come back stateside. We've reformulated everything to meet local preference standards in terms of ingredient selection and performance and things like that here, and bring manufacturing, onshore as much as possible, just to avoid supply chain issues, which are inevitable nonetheless. But that's how we got started. It was really from, a little carrot. My husband said, that's interesting. Because he knows if he goats me, that I'm gonna live up to the challenge.
Exactly. I love that. And I love that you mentioned using your network, because that's how Friends in Beauty started. Friends in Beauty started as networking events, just to connect people in the beauty industry and everything like that, or just other entrepreneurs with each other. And I love that you mentioned like tapping into your network to just, my person back in Mexico City, let me reach out to them to see who they know to help me with the formula and stuff like that. Because I never can stress the importance enough of just meeting people, connecting with people, and just keeping them in your Rolodex, because you just never know. Like you never knew that you were going to need that person for that particular aspect of something new that you were trying. Was this your first entrepreneurial endeavor?
Mostly, I guess. I did have a bagel business. Our son was born in Manhattan, and when I was in business school, and so, he became a quick lover of proper Manhattan style bagels, because shout out to my Canadian counterparts, Montreal bagels are very different. So I don't want to call them better or worse, but you fall in love with what you know. So when we moved abroad, there were no bagel shops, let alone a good New York style bagel shop. So I learned how to make them myself. And then I had a bunch of people, the Canadian embassy started me asking for them, friends started me asking for them. So I started selling those. So I wouldn't call it an official large scale, on endeavor, but it was a fun way to dip my toe in the entrepreneurial world.
I love that. And with you starting off in like beauty, what other kind of investments did you have to make with yourself or with your brand to be able to get it up and running the right way? Since you don't have like an entrepreneur background or a business background, who did you have to invest in aside from like the chemist to like get your business up and running?
Absolutely. Those are great questions, because we're all here just to help each other out. And, I'm one of the big believers that this world is not a fixed pie. The pie can get as big as we all want it to be. So let's all help each other out. So I love what you're doing. I love this whole podcast story about how it came to be. I would say that the finance and business skills, I have pretty good handle on. So that piece, I was pretty comfortable with. I did not know this industry, so I recognized what I didn't know. And that was mostly on the creative side, as well as networking with different people in the industry. So I hired two key groups. I think one is called Schoolhouse. They're an amazing creative agency out of New York, who does fantastic work. And, it's a little bit more pricier because they are very much sought after, but I thought it would be a worthwhile investment to make sure that I did things well out of the starting gates in terms of visual identity, brand identity, kind of the brand voice, the design of the website, because I certainly didn't want to have to go back and fix all of that later. So that was one key group that I think were really pivotal in helping launch such a successful, look and feel and an aesthetic, as well as brand voice out of the gates. And the other is a wonderful consultant. Her name is Gloria Luna. She has many years of experience in the beauty space, and I hired her. I hope Gloria is okay with me saying this, but I didn't ask her. Gloria, sorry if it's not okay. I promise I won't do it again. But she brought tremendous advice and guidance in terms of the different components of things, not physical components, but sometimes physical components, but the different, components of these types of businesses. And if I didn't know one person to do this, or I wasn't quite sure how to structure that, she was really by my side for a number of months to help me get that set up and running, which I really think that those two resources, amongst many others, but those two I think would be the most useful perhaps for your audience if anybody is ever thinking about trying this type of endeavor, to reach out to. There's so many great consultants out there, and so many great agencies, and so many talented people. So I would say, know what you know what you don't know. I don't need to hire a head of finance. Right. I can handle the books for now. I hate it, but I can do it. The accounting is not my favorite part. but in that sense, there's some great resources out there. And if anybody ever has questions, I might not have the answer, but I'm always open to people reaching out. One of those people is say, if somebody takes the time to email me, I'll take the time to respond.
Yeah.
Even if I can't really commit time to them, I will still take the time to respond and see if I can get them on their way. So I'm always open. If anybody, wants me to put people in touch with folks that I may know or who may know somebody, I'm always happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I would love to know also how does your Can't Stop Me Now Scalp Foundation compare to other things on the market? Because I haven't seen it before, maybe because that's not the area where I'm not there yet with hair loss or something. But when I saw the demonstration of it, I was like, oh my God, that's freaking amazing. Like, how does it compare to others on the market? Like, is it waterproof? Like, how does it work?
Oh, okay. Great question. So I'll give you a very quick lay of the land of what's out there now that is either can be used for this or is specifically designed for this purpose. And that's largely a couple different categories. One are the hair fibers that you often see, topic amongst many others. And those can be really good for certain situations, especially perhaps more advanced or progressed hair loss. But and there are many brands, so I'm not going to name a bunch of brands, but they are, I would say, they have their challenges. It's hard to control where you're putting them on. You can't really blend them properly, and so they have great situations in which they work really well, but for many of us, it's not really an ideal fit. Then you've got products that are root covers that say that they can also be used to cover thinning areas. And I would say that's a fair statement to make for very small areas to cover, because they tend to be quite small in format, more like an eyeshadow size with a small brush that's usually flat. So more akin to an eyeshadow brush. And so I kind of look at the way, I think the easiest way to explain it is to say, okay, well, if you're going to put foundation, a pressed powder foundation, if that's your jam, right? If you're going to put that all over your face, what format are you going to want? Are you going to want a tiny little eyeshadow with a flat brush?
Right.
Or are you going to want a nice big ample foundation compact with a nice big, pick your type of foundation brush you like, that you can blend and build and buff and do everything that you want really easily and very quickly, because we also don't have 10 hours to do this, right? And like I'd mentioned before, it can be very consuming in your thoughts. And so the quicker you can hopefully get that anxiety out of your way in the beginning of the day, then the better, right? So the compact was purposefully designed with a very large format, which also makes it quite, I know the price tag can seem higher than one would anticipate because it's $60, but it has 10 grams of product in it, which is generally 3 to 4, if not 5 times what you would find in, say, a comparable root cover at usually more than half the price. So it actually is pretty compelling from a cost standpoint if you're looking at the volume of stuff that you're getting in there. And that was also for environmental reasons. We want to make sure we minimize the number of units that need to be sold to get the same effect. Then the formulation is also designed specifically for this purpose, right? Which is also different. So when you're looking at an eyeshadow, perhaps you might not be so concerned if it's got peptides and hyaluronic acid and all these different yummy ingredients you can put in things. Whereas if it's for your face, your entire face area, you'll probably be a bit more particular and want to see more skincare-like ingredients in it. And so the same concept applied, which is really why we called this Scalp Foundation. Nobody's done that before. I really like to consider this a new product category because I think there's room for all different types, just like there are different types of eyebrow fillers. You got a whole bunch of different types of concealers, right? And options available. So we wanted to make sure it had all of those ingredients. The third category, of the products that it compares to sometimes are the sprays I alluded to earlier, which again are root covers that some people have been using to also conceal their hair loss. And the challenge with those is that it's really hard to control where things are going, how much is going where. Plus you can't travel. I know people do, but legally you're not supposed to get on flights with aerosol products. So it doesn't travel as easily. If you want a little touch up, it's not so straightforward. Like those of us who've tried them, most commonly, I don't want to overgeneralize, but I would say common statement is that you've got to put towels or something over your shoulders to make sure it doesn't go all over the place. Right. Plus it ends up getting the spray flies all over. It ends up on the floor, wherever. So I was really trying to address those categories and see what we could pull that was good from them and what we could make a lot better. And then the ingredients, like I was mentioning, we wanted to make sure it had really good hair and skin loving ingredients. So we have 10 active ingredients. Now, when I say active, I just want to be very clear. We are not a drug company. We do not regrow hair, nor do we stop the growth of hair. So when I say active, I just mean active in the sense of non-therapeutic levels, of things. Because otherwise we'd be classified as a drug. And we don't want to go down that path. We saw what happened with the eyelash extension companies. That was quite a big piece of news the last couple of weeks. So that was really important to us. So we put, peptides and hyaluronic acid and jojoba oil and vitamin E or tocopherol, whichever way you want to call it, and so many other really good ingredients in it to just help nourish the hair and scalp. So we really wanted to do that. And then the other two things I think that were really key was that one, a lot of products out there, once they're placed down, are actually matte. And hair is not matte. Hair is shiny, right? And so we don't want to lose that shine, that reflectiveness that adds depth to our hair. And so we made sure that we put a lot of shine in it, not so that it looks like a strobe light, but just so that it mimics your hair, so that when you have it applied, it really looks very natural, assuming you've applied it. It takes some practice. Just like if you try your winged eyeliner for the first time, usually the first couple of times, you might be a little heavy-handed here, it's crooked there. It's a little bit similar in that it takes some, a little bit of practice, but I think with a couple of attempts and figuring it out, people have been able to identify the best application technique. We wanted to make sure it was really water resistant. So I have videos that, for the sake of people seeing that, it's me and who's this person, right? I don't need to see my face too much more, honestly. I much prefer having so many wonderful models that we're able to partner with. But I thought the easiest way for people to really see the proof is in the pudding is to see this thing in water. So I jump into a pool and dump my head underwater and, run my arm under a faucet and for extended periods of time with a good amount of pressure of water to show that people, you can get out there, you can go out in the rain, right. You can do whatever you want and it's not going to come off, unless you rub it off, just like anything. If you rub your makeup off your face, no matter what, waterproofness it is, it's going to come off. Right? And so those were, some of the key things for us that were really important. And the application system was also really key. There are, like I mentioned, what I think are inadequate application systems for this purpose, wonderful for what they were designed for, not great necessarily for this, which is, a large format brush is what was needed, not a small flat brush. And, in a large pan. And we wanted the brush to have really dual capacity to it. So it's very dense and very soft. One side you'll see is shorter than the other. And that was what really helps lay down a lot of pigment. And the softer side, they're both soft, but the one that has the longest bristles is less compact at the end of the bristles. So that really helps when you face that toward the hairline. I'm getting a little bit too detailed here, I think, but when you get toward the hairline, the last thing you want is for your head to look like you're wearing like a Lego helmet, right? Yeah. We don't want that. So it's, about the brush and making sure you apply it, using a certain technique. So we really tried to hit different aspects in terms of its composition, its like physical design and its performance. And I think we hit the nail on the spot. We've gotten some really great feedback from customers. And, those who have, taken some time to figure out how it works. And, we have a great customer service team who always helps people to the extent, they can with shade matching. And we have a great, program that's 100% money back guarantee. So if you want to try this, kind of new and scary for some people, either they've never tried anything or they've tried a bunch of things and they've just given up and then they're, less eager to look for something new and they don't want to spend more money. So we said, you know what, if we stand behind our product, we got to give people that money back if they don't like it. And our return rate is extraordinarily low, well below industry standards, especially in color cosmetics. So I'm very, very happy to see that. And then we have a great exchange program so that people can, try if it's not the right shade. The shades are really forgiving. So we always tell people, look, order which you think is the most appropriate, best to match your hair at your roots. And, if you're not sure, go a little bit darker. It tends to be a little bit easier, but if it's not right, let us know. We'll get another shade out to you. Don't worry about it, and try the other one, try both, because our policy is to not well, we discard everything that's returned just for sanitary reasons. Even if, people have said they haven't used it, just in case, somehow some microbes got in, we just don't want to bother risking somebody's health that way. And so we say, just try it out. I mean, even if you look at it, you don't think it's the right color, you might be surprised because there are actually 3 shades I can use. I can use the dark blonde, and people can't see me, but I have kind of a light brown, reddish, tingy kind of hair, I suppose is the fairest way to put it. And I can use the dark blonde, the light brown, or the medium brown, in a pinch.
The white shade for? I saw you have a white shade.
Yeah, so a lot of women who are postmenopausal, or any woman who has white hair, premenopausal, but generally postmenopausal, you'll find that, they don't know what to do because their scalp starts showing through as well. And so we have a model on our website. Her name is Joan. She's a wonderful woman. And she's got beautiful white hair. And so she models how you can conceal your scalp. And I won't say which family member. He's a male and he's older. And so I don't want to out him. But I've got great photos of him who've got, a big bald spot in the back, and it just covers it up right away.
I don't even think about our mature family members that we have because my mom's hair, I know she's going to watch this and she knows that I don't like it, but her hair is completely like gray now, like completely like white. And she loves it because she has a young face, but her hair is all gray. But I'm like, she's getting older. And I'm like, oh.
Yes. Well, and what's happened, it's so funny. It's true. What's happened too is with the pandemic, I think that a lot of people have chosen to let their hair grow into their natural color. So we are actually, we haven't announced this really publicly, but we are launching 3 new shades later this year. We're starting to allude to it. If people are looking at certain photos, they'll figure it out. And one of those shades is a salt and pepper color, because the most requested color that we have not yet produced is salt and pepper.
That's going to change the game.
It is. It's really fun. So we have our own community of we call ourselves confidence crusaders. And so, our own community of customers out there, our confidence crusaders, they have been the ones testing the products. So the shades, the formulas are largely similar, but, there's just a shade differentiation. So it's been great to involve the community in that as well, because we get to, talk to folks right after and see how it's going, too light, too dark. So that's also been a really exciting way to help build our community. But we have a lot of demand for that silver that's coming out later this year.
I love that so much. I know you mentioned the brush that you have. I know you have a few other products as well. And I know that, I saw that you direct some of your proceeds of the Gentle Touch microfiber towel to organizations that fight against human trafficking.
Yes.
So I would love to know, why did you choose that cause? Why is that a cause that you're passionate about?
Oh, well, it is, I think, just like hair and loss in women. I think it's also one of the really underspoken about, that's not a word, but I'm making up words, but you get the gist, issues facing society. I think people don't realize how grave the issue is. And I think it's actually the number one thing that is going to be challenging our society for the next few decades. And I won't go into details. It can be quite triggering to talk about. So I'll leave it at that. And if anybody ever wants to talk about it, I'm always very, very open to talking about it. But when I was living in Latin America for 10 years, this is something that happens everywhere, just to be clear. Okay. It happens wherever you live. It's within a block. I will be very clear about that. Yeah. So I don't want to imply this only happens in certain parts of the world, but that's where I learned about it through, I'm a person of faith. And so through my church, I learned quite a bit about it, and actually started doing service work, working with people who have exited that life and been rescued from that life, and doing work in and safe houses with them as a volunteer, and really got to know the young women in that community personally, one-on-one, and just the fire of life, the desire to survive, to live, to enjoy life that, I think really speaks highly of how strong that the human soul can be. And so I was just so deeply touched by these young women that I said, no matter what we do in life, and I've always been a big believer in this, we've got to do something for a greater good. right? So it's great to make money. Sure. It's great to do something neat that's in, the cosmetic space or whatever, business you're working in that is doing something and bringing value to people. That's great. But we also, I think, all have a moral obligation, and we should want to, help elevate this world to make it someplace better for those who are less fortunate, who don't have the same opportunities. And so for me, directing a portion of our proceeds to the fight against trafficking, and the organizations to whom we direct those proceeds are organizations I know personally very well. Either I actively have volunteered with them and I know the founders, or I volunteer with them and I know people who are there very closely. And so we decided the Gentle Touch microfiber towel is great to use. It's at a great price point. It's $7. I don't want to say that, I don't want to decide what's a lot of money or not, but I think in the grand scheme of beauty, $7 is a reasonable thing. And we just said, you know what? We don't want to make any money from these towels. They're very convenient. They're great to wash your face. They're great to protect your counter when you're putting it on. They're big 16 by 16 inch microfiber towels. Okay. You can wash your face with them so well. You can protect your counters. Like I said, you travel with the products all wrapped up in them. And, but let's do some good with this. So 100% of our proceeds from that, we make no profit on them. Which is why we always try to I always strong arm my friends into buying them. Yeah. Say, buy the towel, even if you don't need the product, buy the towel. So that's been a fantastic way. And then we also direct a portion of the proceeds of all other sales to the same organizations. So that's just been something near and dear to my heart. I'm actually going, today is Tuesday, Friday, I'm going out. I do service here with a group called The Landing. And we go down to one of the red light districts and speak to the women out on the streets to hopefully start forming good relationships with them so that if and when they're ready to exit the life, that they have resources to where they can go. So it's near and dear to my heart. It is difficult to talk about for many people, so I don't talk about it too much unless I'm asked, but it is very important to the fiber of our company of, giving back in a way that is meaningful.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the way that you're doing it too. I know of one other, I know a makeup artist who's doing kind of something similar. I think hers is more so for women who are coming back into society after being incarcerated. But I love the idea of like choosing a product from your brand to donate to that, because a lot of times I feel like people do want to donate to charities and give back in some kind of way, but they don't know how they're going to like personally be able to provide that financially.
Right.
The idea of like just choosing something from your brand and just letting the proceeds.
Yeah. And that's why we always tell our customers, buy the towel.
The bigger picture, like giving back to the world. Yeah. At the end of the day, Camille, like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh gosh, my legacy, if I walk into a Sephora, Ulta, wherever, and I see a big section dedicated to hair loss concealers, I will be very happy. I'll go to my grave extremely content. So in the meantime, because that's not an easy feat to achieve, but in the meantime, just knowing that we can impact people's lives. I've lived that anxiety. My husband has seen me like not want to sit at a restaurant under the like the halogen lamps or the spotlights above you. Yeah. He knew to put me, because he's got a thick head full of hair. Lucky him. He complains his water pressure is not too high because the water bounces off his hair. And I just look at him. I'm like, hey, do you want to give me some of that?
Okay. That's a good problem to have. Okay.
But he's always been very gracious and understanding what makes me much more self-conscious. If we can take that away for a lot of people, that's really what we're going after. Just the other day, I received an email from one of our customers saying, I just wanted to share with you, and I'm saying this verbatim, I wanted to share with you how your Scalp Foundation has changed my life. And then, another quote of, I can now go and start my day. And this I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exact language, but, I can now start my day, spending almost just a little bit of time getting ready as opposed to a lot of time trying to fix this and that and to hide this, move that. And then I just don't think about it anymore. And they said, this is the first time in my life I haven't had anxiety about my hair loss when I leave. So those to me are the things that really are the spirit of why we do what we do. And I think everybody in this industry, in many industries, really has that approach. I don't think we're better than anyone else, but we found a new way to address something that has been around for ages and clearly could do better.
I love that. Other than the shades that you are coming out with soon, anything else coming up next for you personally or your brand that you want to share?
We have some new products that are in development. I can't specify which ones. They do span across color cosmetics as well as skincare. So, we would really like to be, that top of mind brand for people when they're just looking for their core set of necessities, such as their scalp foundation, et cetera. So, and then we're also launching some new shades, like I said, and we really listen to the folks who are out there, whether it's influencers who have been posting a lot about what we do, and we haven't paid any influencers yet. So that's been really exciting to see the reaction, because that community to me speaks really highly, because they're very authentic in the sense that if they're not receiving any financial remuneration for something,
Right.
and they're still posting about it, I'm not to imply that if they are receiving money, they're not being genuine. I think they absolutely are. They're very discerning about what they'll post because they really want to feel like they can get behind it. But if they're not having any, sort of compensation for it, then I think that that's huge. That's a huge testament. And so from that community, we realized that we've got one tool that we still need to make, at least.
Yeah.
So that's also in production as well. So that's getting pretty exciting. Is that I can say it's a new brush as well to add to our lineup.
I love that. I was just geeking out when you were talking about the brushes, because I totally get, I'm a makeup artist. So I totally get it when you were talking about the dense brush and the fluffy brush.
Yeah.
It's the way that I teach my students when I'm teaching them like how to set the face out, like alternate between like a small brush for like maybe here and up under here, but like a big brush for the whole face. So like,
oh, really?
I get it for like alternating, like, it'd be hard to powder with a big brush like up under here, but you get something small. It's like you want a small brush for like the details and the hairline.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to hit you up for some recommendations. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, I love it.
And I'm not a makeup expert, so I'm getting better at it, but I'm definitely going to hit you up for some tips down the road.
Let me know. This has been an amazing conversation. I've learned so much. I just love meeting new people and just learning their stories, and you're amazing. And I see so much potential, like growth in what you're doing, especially with the gray color. I feel like that is really going to change the game. Like that gray color.
I think so. We have a special code that we give people if they're interested. I say this for your listeners, it's not a secret. If somebody currently is interested in silver and since we don't have it, we actually have a certain code we'll give you if you reach out to our customer care team, and that will give you a free black if you order the compact with the duo with the brush in white, so that you can actually mix your silvers, because a lot of our foxy ladies out there actually have a number of silver tones on their head. Mm-hmm. So the top part might be much lighter, almost like a whitish silver, and the bottom part around like the neck area can actually be sometimes even almost dark gray silver, almost black. And so they actually enjoy mixing the two, because that way they can control, you as a makeup artist understand the importance.
I'm so excited about mixing. I'm like,
yeah. So I have a feeling some are still going to stick to the mix, but for those who just want, one color out of the box, that's going to be what they're going to probably prefer to use.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So before you go, I have to ask you the Friends of Beauty rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
So, this is pertaining to you and your business. So just, spit it out, whatever comes to your mind first.
All right.
You're just like, okay, she's like ready.
Hit me. No, I'm good. Hey, at 46, it takes a lot to rattle us. Like, okay.
What are the top 3 keys to your success so far?
That's a good question. There's so many. I would say one is kind of grit. You'll hear it referred to as so many ways: tenacity, grit. I would just say, and that to me, I look at it in 2 ways. It's first the ability to get back up when you've been knocked down, because you're going to get knocked down. It's never in life a matter. It's always when, not if, and it's going to be repeatedly, right? And then the other is just adaptability as part of that word of grit. To me is also when you're thrown into new things, are you adaptable? So, when I've moved to different countries, you get immersed in completely different cultures, and without going into detail, there's some that can be quite startling at first. And you have a choice. You can either adapt or you can fight the power, right? And it's just like, no, I'm not going to change the culture of this country just because I was raised a different way. For example, certain parts of the country, of the world, being an hour late is completely normal, right? And in others, it's considered very rude. So wherever you are, go with the flow, right? So that type of grit to me is just adaptability and your ability to come back from things. The other I would say is the ability, like we were talking about earlier, of networking, the ability to bring people together, because you never know, when somebody is going to need you and when somebody is going to be of value to you. And everything in life is just really symbiotic to me. So there's always give and take and give and take. And what can I do for you? So one of my biggest things I love as I've gotten to know this industry is when I find a cool brand, I post about it. They probably think I've got some like crazy stalker thing about them. Like, no, you're just doing something really neat. I love it. Right. So let's connect people. Let's put people together, because you never know through those connections, whether it's 10 degrees of separation away from you, somebody will find out about something that they didn't know and that they needed. And they found out because you told so-and-so who told so-and-so who told so-and-so, and you kind of brought people together. So for me, bringing people together has been a big part of things. And then the other, I would say, in the face of a lot of challenges, when you move around a lot, especially to places where they speak different languages or have completely different social customs or professional, manners of doing things, is to always remember we're here to serve others. So for me, just living, a life filled with gratitude, and I don't want to sound too woo-woo about these things, but at the end of the day, when you're really, grateful for what you have, it helps you just put the things that aren't working so well out of your mind for a second, and then, and focus on what you have control over, be grateful for what you have, and move forward. Right. So I'm doing it a little bit more broadly, but I think those three key things, the grit, the bringing people together, and life with gratitude and service, I think have been key for me in terms of either, business success or personal growth, success and personal growth, I would say.
Yes, I love that. Oh my gosh. How do you measure your success?
Oh, what a good question. I've never thought that before. How do I measure my success? How do I measure my success? I would say, I think it's, am I forming new memories? Because I say this a lot to people, like, and I don't want to call people out in a negative way, but, sometimes you have a person of an older generation who always talks about things in the good old days, right? And you look at their life and you say, but what about all the cool stuff you're doing now, right?
Yeah.
Those are all new memories you're forming. Yes, the good old days are great and that's fantastic, but create new memories, always build new memories. So, don't talk about what you did in work 15 years ago. Don't talk about the service work you did 20 years ago. Talk about what you're going to do now or what you are doing now. And if you aren't, I think you need to go think about that. So for me, it's just, am I making new memories and meaningful ones? So that for me is probably a definition of how I'd say success in my world.
I love that. What's the best advice you've ever received?
There's so many, but I think the one that is probably the least popular at first when people hear it, but I think to me has been the most meaningful. And I've heard it from two different sources. So I heard it not personally, but through, his teachings. Professor Scott Galloway, he's a professor over at NYU Stern, and also a very successful tech investor and podcaster, et cetera. And, he said, and my pastor at my church in Mexico City said the same thing. He said, you got to figure out what you're good at and leverage that, because, for the pastor, it was, if you're tone deaf, you're not going to be a great fit for the choir. You know what? Like, no matter how hard and passionate you are and you want to be the singer and you want to do this, if you can't, I ask you to please go serve in another way. And, I think it's the same thing. It's figure out what you're really good at and leverage that in life. Not to say you shouldn't dream about things that you're passionate about, but if what you're passionate about, you kind of suck at, you want to reconsider. So I think it's good to always be aware of what you're good at, and really try to leverage that in life. So I thought it was funny when it intersected from a professor and a pastor, the same message.
That's great advice, though. It's so true. What advice would you give to another woman right now who has just started to experience their first bout of hair loss, and they're like going through a panic phase? They don't know what is going on. Their confidence is shot. Like, what advice would you give to her right now?
First is take a deep breath. take a deep breath. It's going to be a long journey. I'm not going to lie, because this is not something, the hair growth cycle is not like plucking out your eyebrow and you have to, or cutting your hair and you got to let it grow in a little bit. No, it's the hair growth cycle takes time. So take a deep breath and know that it's going to be a long journey. Now, first thing to do, go see a medically trained professional. And I would say two are the valid professionals to go see. One is a board certified dermatologist who has up-to-date information, because out-of-date information is of no use to anybody, especially with all the recent changes and improvements and enhancements in medication. The reason my hair is as thick as it is now, which is still half of what I had growing up, and I still use my foundation every single day, but is because on new medications, even ones I just started 8 months ago, right? And this is 25 years deep into this journey. So in the last 2 years, I've started 2 new medications that have made a huge difference. So make sure you go see somebody who's very well trained. The other group, I would say that if a board certified dermatologist, because I'm usually partial to medically trained doctors, but if that's not your jam or you don't have access to somebody, a trichologist is a wonderful resource as well. And they are specialists who haven't gone to medical school. I don't believe they have to have an RN either, but have gone to school to learn specifically about hair growth and scalp health. So I think hair, nails, and nails as well. So I think those two are the first place to go before you listen to the neighbor who tells you this, or you listen to the guy who tells you this, or, take the biotin, castor oil. I have some reels that I put on Instagram about things that are just absurd things that people tell you to do, so it's like biotin. Every doctor has told me, unless you have a biotin deficiency, you don't need biotin supplements. And few people in Western diets have biotin deficiencies. I'm just repeating what I've been told over and over again. I'm not medically trained, so I don't want to give people advice, but the first thing those doctors are going to do is have you run a full blood panel to make sure you're not deficient in things, right? Because then you've got to figure out the source of the hair loss. And the reason I say go see somebody as fast as possible is because the longer you wait, the harder it is to regrow that hair that has been lost. And I want to give people hope. Like, here I am, even 20 years later, I have been taking medications now that have made such a huge improvement that I don't need to wear prosthetic hair, which is something I chose to wear for a number of years when I was younger. So, that would be my biggest set of advice, is be very discerning about the advice you take. And I think another thing to know is that, if your hair loss is something that's temporary, make sure you understand that if you're doing a treatment that's not from your medical provider, make sure that your medical provider thinks that that's the right treatment. It wasn't just a coincidence that your hair was going to grow back anyway, so that you're not spending a ton of money on things that may not have necessarily been the reason your hair grew back, so that you're not using that in perpetuity after, because it gets expensive. This is not a cheap endeavor. These things are not covered by health insurance, as far as I know. So mine has never covered it. So that's my advice. And find a great community of people who are empathetic. And, if you have an autoimmune form of hair loss, that's probably going to be a different type of community than if you have the type I have, right? Because we have different treatment protocols, different root causes for it. So, there are plenty of communities out there now, which is so great online, and just find somebody, and it's okay to talk about it, because that's what I think is the hardest step for so many of us. So go see a medical professional, go see them as fast as you can, and find your network, because it's going to be a journey. When you start a new medication, it can take 6, 8, 12 months for it to start working. And if it's not going to work, it's going to take you that long to find out too. And then you got to try a new one. And if you choose, some people, that's not what they want to do. They prefer to embrace their hair loss and find ways that they feel comfortable wearing their hair. They're what they call bio hair, their natural hair. And that's awesome too. But even that's going to be a bit of a journey, because your hair loss is probably going to change over time. It's not like it's something that changes one day to the next, and that's what you're going to get. It's always evolving and changing. So it's a journey. That's all I will say. But there's so much hope, so much hope. I'm telling you, 25 years ago, I would have said, oh gosh, I don't know what to tell you. And now I'm saying there's so many things you can do cosmetically and medically, which is awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. What's a resource that helps you in your business that you can share with the Friends of Beauty community? I know you shared 2 already. It's like another one.
Oh, well, being new to the industry. So if somebody isn't, an industry veteran, I would say Beauty Independent or the Indie Beauty Media Group as a general whole, because Beauty Independent is their publication, but they have different arms of what they do, weekly podcasts, webinars, really. And events like I went to, I think it was called Beauty X Summit right before the pandemic. It was in LA, and they had a whole panel of experts teaching you about different things in the industry. So they're really supportive of the indie beauty world. Mm-hmm. And I think they're by far the best resource out there. The people are wonderful and so supportive, and they actually have really helpful resources available to you. And I didn't list all of them. They have a whole bunch of other programs as well, but take a look on their website. And, to me, that would have been the biggest thing. But the other, and not just because I'm talking to you right now, are the beauty podcasts. You and other beauty podcasters have created this community of resources that you very generously, offer everybody. I know many people do it on the side. It's not even their primary line of work. And the guests that you have on, whether it's a founder who shared something that's useful, or whether it's a doctor who shares something that's useful, or a trichologist, or a chemist, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's so many resources that are brought to the table on all of these podcasts. And I find it's not too duplicitous between the podcasts. I don't know how you guys do it if you coordinate amongst yourselves, but you would think like, oh, it's going to be the same thing over and over and over, right? Yeah, there's some overlap from time to time just because it's skincare and beauty, and that's what we're all talking about. So you're going to overlap. But at the end of the day, you guys are really all attacking it from different angles. And I think it's just amazing. I mean, I couldn't have done this without the podcast out there. And I'm not saying this just because I'm sitting here with you. I'm saying it honestly, genuinely. If you talk to my children, they'll just roll their eyes because they recognize the voices of, said podcast or that. Yeah. And they're just like, oh my gosh, Mom, like we have to listen to this. And I said, there are people who know their stuff, and that's these folks. And if they don't know, they bring on experts, and that's tremendous value because you got to be resourceful. So to me, those are the two best places. And even an episode that you think you have nothing in common with necessarily, you'd be surprised what you learn. Maybe I remember I was listening to one podcast, and Marcia Kilgore, who's, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name properly, but she's the founder of Bliss and recently the founder of the now exploding Beauty Pie brand, had said something about the economics. And it was on a podcast that I think she was talking about. It was a beauty podcast. I think it was British. And they were talking about the microbiome, but the nugget I got out of it wasn't necessarily the microbiome, although as interesting as it was the unit economics she was talking about the business that I didn't know in the beginning. So, you never know, like go out there, listen to something that you never thought you would have learned anything from. And it's great because we're all in the same industry. We all love the same, thing, self-confidence, beauty, feeling good, looking good, whichever angle you have in beauty and what it means to you. That's great. And we're all here, I think, for the greater good. So I've never come across, and I'm sure there is, like in every industry, you're going to have some people who aren't very nice, but that's just life. But I've never come across somebody who hasn't wanted to answer a question I offered, even if they don't know me from a hole in the wall. So that's, I'm sorry, I give long-winded answers, I suppose, but I like to give some context.
No problem. The last one is just, I want you to fill in the blank.
Okay.
My name is blank, and the key to longevity and success is whatever you think it is.
My name is Camille Baretto, and the key to longevity is to learn how to read a room.
Ooh, okay. You gotta elaborate on that one.
Because in life, you're going to be presented with all different situations, different people, and you might have your agenda that you thought, but you have to learn to read a room very fast. So whether you are, I don't know, one example, I was doing volunteer work in junior achievement. I don't know if you have, that's still going in schools, but they do it's pretty big across Canada and the US. I grew up in Canada. And so we would go in and we would teach, 8th graders how to run finances, right? So you have your idea of how you're going to do it. But once you get in there, you have to read the room and understand what's going to resonate and what's not. The same thing is going to happen in so many different instances, right? Whether you're talking to VCs when you're going in, I mean, hopefully you're very prepared before you go talk to them, but, read the room. You got to see what's going on, read the room with your chemists, read the room with, your manufacturers. So I think that that's a really good skill that I'm still working really hard at. Sometimes I put my foot in my mouth because I clearly haven't done it well, but it's something I try.
You're just gonna blame it on the pandemic. You getting used to talking to people again,
Yes. So, I just want to say thank you so much for what you do, you and all the other beauty podcasters and the many other podcasters out there that are just creating such great content that is really valuable for people.
You're welcome. This is my absolute pleasure. This is like such a joy for me because I get to learn so much just from meeting new people and their stories and everything. I had no idea about the struggles with, alopecia and the products. And this is all informational for me. So I absolutely love it. Before you go, share any of your social media information or however you want people to connect with you, get to the products and all of that.
Oh, thank you. Our social media handles are Me Cosmetics USA, not because we're just patriotic, I'm not even American, but somebody has the other handle. They've been inactive for 8 years and I'm trying to figure out how to get them, but we're trying. So it's Me Cosmetics USA. We are on TikTok where you'll see my goofy face doing goofy things, but trying to share an important message. Instagram, Facebook, and our website is mecosmetics.com. And, I would say reach out to us anytime. info@mecosmetics.com is our customer care team, whether you have questions about shades, shade selection, application videos, whatever, if you have a complaint, if you want to talk to the CEO, the messages will get to me. If they need to get to me, they will get to me. So that's something that would be great to share. And if you want, let me know after. I'm happy to set up a discount code or, a promotional code for your listeners. If you'd like, we can make it, Aquia 25 for 25% off. There you go. I'll set it up. Give me a day to set it up and I'll get that set up.
That works. So we'll make it Aquia 25. We'll
yes.
just say is that, and I'll put it in the description and then check back.
Yes. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yay. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you so much. It's been great. And a shout out to Ornami Skincare, who I learned about on your podcast, and I brought their product and it's fantastic. The body scrub is really good. So hydrating. So hydrating. So anyways, shout out to them.
Oh, this is amazing. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for listening to the Friends in Beauty podcast. Don't forget, sharing is caring. Share this episode with at least one friend in beauty and subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts so that other friends in beauty can find this show. Plus, we'd love to hear your feedback. Connect with us on all social media platforms at Friends in Beauty, #Friends in Beauty to join the conversation, and join our Friends in Beauty Facebook community to stay connected. Talk to you soon.